here at the Pratt. I'm very happy to be able to come out here on Saturday in December. A couple of pieces of housekeeping before we begin. As you can see, we have a full stage. It's going to be a lot of talk tonight, or this afternoon. Our usual programs run an hour, but because of the number of panelists, we're going to go an hour and a half, just to give you an idea of the setup for the format of the program. If you parked in our Franklin Street garage, please come see me or my colleague Sophia. We can give you a voucher. All of our author programs here at the Pratt are free. We offer free parking. So if you come out again, please park at Franklin Street. Come visit us. We'll give you a voucher for free parking. I also want to add that we have our January and February author program flyers out front. Please take a look. We have 17 programs coming up for January and February. A lot of great stuff that I'm sure you'd find of interest. This afternoon, I'm happy to welcome to the Pratt Library the contributors of The Greatest Story Never Told. The Greatest Story Never Told is a compilation of stories of women who have experienced trauma they have never revealed. Trauma that kept them in bondage, trauma that increased their pain. Now, that same trauma narrative is helping to set others free because of their revelations. It's now my great pleasure to introduce this afternoon's moderator, Kia Sophie Scott, who will then introduce our other speakers. Kia Sophie Scott is a native of Baltimore City and CEO of STP Enterprises, Business Consulting, and Sophie's Tax Prep LLC. She has served in many volunteer capacities in the community and is the Chief Operating Officer of Dana's Daughters, Inc. Although she is best known for her passion in financial education, her work with Dana's Daughters has revealed a new desire to help others through their healing journey. My voice got louder. Please welcome Kia Sophie Scott and the contributors of The Greatest Story Never Told.
Thank you so much, Cleve. I do appreciate that introduction. I want to firstly welcome you guys here once again. Thank you guys for coming out on a Saturday. As he mentioned, coming into places in person is a little bit different now because everybody is so used to doing everything virtually. So we certainly do appreciate everybody for taking the time to physically come here and appreciate what has been worked on with all of these ladies today. Yes, so give yourself a round of applause first. Okay. And everybody hear me all right? That's my first one. Okay, I got a thumbs up on that. Awesome. So as he did mention, my name is Kia Sophie Scott. I am the Chief Operating Officer of Dana's Daughters Incorporated, which happens to be the organization that was founded by Sierra Walker, our author today, in 2018. So we're coming up on the 5th year. Get excited about that. Yes. It is now incorporated. It is now officially a 501c3 organization. Yes. So get excited about that. Yes. Yes, donations are welcome. Shameless plug. The organization was a vision that was given to Sierra by God, and we appreciate her obedience in following the instruction and creating an organization. It was created to make a community of people and women originally who had dealt with certain traumas in their lives, right? And we wanted to sort of give them a mechanism to figure out how to work with, discover, and cope and get through those traumas and work on healing, right? To start their healing journey, continue their healing journey. That's what the point of the organization is. As such, we have different experiences, is what we like to call them, where we come together. We have different workshops for women ages 12 and older, where they can sort of discover who they are, reveal the mask, talk about their truth, and learn how to move forward so we can have happy and healthy lives holistically, right? So we're talking about mind, body, soul, and spirit. Yes? Get excited? It's okay for y'all to talk back to me. I know. It's a little weird, but this is the way it goes, okay? Get excited. I do love the energy. I love the feedback. This is not a monologue. This is a conversation, right? Yes? Get excited. So we would be remiss if we did not mention Dana's Daughters organization because it is the conduit that actually brought each and every one of these ladies together in different capacities, right? So each and every one of these ladies were drawn to Sierra because of that organization. It just so happened that originally the mission was sort of to talk about fatherlessness, right? Sierra, if you don't know, is actually my sister. We share a mother. Get excited. And Dana is our mom. Well, she was our mom. She passed in July of 2021. And so we honor her through this organization. We did honor her before she passed. She was a part of the board of the organization, and now since she's gone, we're pushing forward all the more, and so we're here today. Okay, and so Dana's Daughters originally started about fatherlessness. That's what we were centered around, because Sierra and I know our dads, yes, but we have different experiences with fatherhood than many other sort of healthy families, if you will, right? And then we started to grow into other things. And it was like, well, let's talk about homelessness. Let's talk about poverty. And we started talking about financial education. And somehow we tripped on domestic violence, right? October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and God gave Sierra vision to have a domestic violence awareness event. It was super impactful. It was completely unexpected. And the power and the change that happened in that room elevated Dana's Daughters to the next level. And as a result of that, what no one could foresee at that time in 2018 was that all of these ladies here would join the mission and come together to write this anthology that we're calling The Greatest Story Never Told.
Yes.
We're excited. So without further ado, we're actually going to introduce each of the authors, or the author and the co-authors of the book. We have Sierra Walker. Get excited. We have Sheffin Brown. We have V. Donna Bruce. We have Felicia Laguerre McCoy.
McCoy Laguerre.
McCoy Laguerre. I'm so sorry. I do that every time. So we have Tasha Chance. Very excited. I will tell you this. I had the pleasure, of course, of reading the book, and it was impactful on me in a way that I never even expected. When we're talking about trauma and we're talking about domestic violence, everybody has their own version of what it is, right? I have my own version. Most of us are victims of it in some way or another, whether you saw it, experienced it, lived it, or whether it was in your family and just became something that you were accustomed to, right? So it's something that many of us near and far are able to relate to in our own way. But when you gather the experiences in such an emotional way from others, it just hit different, right? Ain't that what the young people say nowadays? Can I say that? It hit different, right? It was impactful to me on another level that I completely did not expect. And so I'm hoping that through today and through our dialogue, where we give you a little bit of glimpse into the book, we don't want to give away too much now, but we want to share a little bit of each of these stories, because I believe they'll change the world, honestly. That's what I believe. So in order, they actually are in order that they appear in the book by chapter. We do have three authors actually, that aren't present today for various reasons. We will acknowledge them as they come along, but we would not want to skip them, because what they have to contribute is equally as important as every other person. So this is not in order of importance. It's just in order that they appear in the book. And it starts with Sierra Walker. Get excited. So Mrs. Walker, Miss Walker.
Miss Walker.
Y'all, I'm gonna come in and out. Okay, y'all, this is my sister, y'all. Okay. Back in. The title of your chapter is 12 Years a Slave.
Yes. 12 Years a Slave was very significant to me, because I spent 12 years in an abusive relationship. And that relationship almost took me out of here. And so I'm sitting here by the grace of God. Getting into the relationship was a choice, intentional even, because I was looking for something that I thought was missing, and I thought that something was found in this person. But it was because of everything that happened in that relationship why I'm sitting here now, and why I'm able to help other people. It also helped me to discover that my trauma was so deep-seated and deep-rooted that it started way before the 12 years. So 12 years was just the climax, the manifestation of what needed to happen for me to get out. But the 12 years gave me an opportunity to have all of these women be up here, to start an organization, and to now be able to give back and show people that there is hope, that slavery is not just what we think about with being in bondage and being in chains, but slavery is a mindset. And so once I renewed my mind and was able to be free from that, the thought processes about how I saw myself in the world and my connection to the world, then I started to make impact and was able to be set free.
That's powerful. Now I will, this is me, give my own subtitle to your chapter, okay?
Okay. Lady O.
And it is, and you did make note of it. So it's the woman with the issue of blood, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if any of you in here are familiar with the story in the Bible with the woman with the issue of blood, she had sort of a blood disorder, if you will, for 12 years until she was able to encounter Jesus and just touch the hem of his garment, right? And her story is very much parallel to your story. And what I do want to read is one small excerpt that will shed some light on the trauma that you were enduring and that you had to overcome.
Okay.
So it reads, many words were exchanged. The argument grew more and more intense. I decided I should just go home, and that really pissed him off. He jumped up on the bed, climbed on top of me, put his knees on my biceps to keep me pinned down to the bed. At that time, I had fresh braids. He grabbed my braids by the roots and began ripping them out, multiple braids at a time. I remember the sound of my hair being ripped from my scalp. It sounded like Velcro being separated, only I could hear it inside of my head. And I felt the burning of the exposed scalp. He stopped, jumped off of me, and yelled, "Get the fuck out."
Yeah. Woo, listening back to that. Oh my goodness. So going back to that moment, we were not even married then. We were just dating. And I had already had his baby at this point. But what I thought was love, I found was just control and manipulation. And it had just gotten to a point where it really hit that peak where he felt like he could do whatever he wanted to do and say whatever he wanted to say. So I think that prior to that, it was a lot of verbal abuse that was happening. It was a lot of subtle manipulation and control that was happening. So from where I went to the clothes that I wore to where I stayed, at first it was shown like, oh, well, you can just hang out with me, or let's go and do this. I just want to spend so much time with you because I love you that much, right? But it really didn't have anything to do with that, because what I realize now in hindsight is that during that time, whenever he wanted to go out and hang out with his friends, then there was, I could do whatever I wanted to do, or he had me stationary. So he knew I wasn't going to go anywhere. But as soon as he wanted me to be available, then it was, oh, pick up the phone and showing all this attention and let me shower you with a gift. Gifts isn't even my love language at all. But that's what he would try to use to pull me back in. So when we got to that point, I had been a victim of rape. And so if you've ever been raped before, if you've ever been sexually assaulted before, you understand that there is a measure of dirty that exists that's insatiable. You just can't wash this thing off. And so I spent 7 years of going through these dirty and clean cycles where I was constantly going in the shower, scrubbing my skin clean, but never feeling clean. So I was at least showering or bathing at least 2 to 3 times a day. And then if I ever had sex, then I had to bathe immediately. And so this particular incident came after us sleeping together. And then I had to go and clean myself so that I could at least feel okay. I never felt 100% like I was disinfected, or I never felt like I would be pure again, in a sense, but to have some sort of normalcy. And it was something he was aware of. I had been very open and transparent with him, but he wasn't happy about it. And on this particular night, he lashed out. And I think that maybe something else was going on. And then this just kind of took the brunt end of it. And when it became very physical for the first time, and it was very violent. There were other people that were in the house. His brother came next door to the room where we were in and tried to intervene. And he gave him basically a look of death and telling him, like, you need to leave. And so because of that, I got no assistance. And then I was told to get the fuck out. And when, as I'm trying to leave, I just remember like gathering my braids, and there's blood everywhere, and there's blood on the sheets, and there's blood that's like dripping on from my head, and it's dripping on the bag because it was that bad. And just thinking like, what could I have done to deserve this? Like, why am I being punished for something that happened to me that I couldn't even control in the first place? And then what made it worse is that what I did not mention in the story was when I went to try to get what I thought would be help is confided in my grandmother. She pretty much just used the word against me. So she told me that, well, you just need to pray for him. He was giving excuses for his behavior. And, maybe you need to change what you're doing so that it won't happen again. And so it was at that moment I felt like I didn't have anybody anymore.
Firstly, I'm just sorry that you experienced that. I can feel the passion in what you're saying when you're telling your story. I can feel that you have moved past it, but you can still see it as clear as day. Some things you just don't forget.
No.
And as I was reading your chapter, that literally just jumped out at me, and I could just feel it in that moment, who you were and what you were thinking, and even possibly the rage that he had to have been feeling in order to do that to you. But I'm so grateful that you're here. I'm so grateful that we were able to move forward from that. It was my sister, so I'm super grateful that you're here, and that now coming forward to the end of your chapter, get excited. Mm-hmm. Your new name is Harriet Tubman. Yes.
Yes, Lady Freedom. HT.
HT is her new name, folks. You heard it here. Okay. So she is sort of given the task now of doing exactly what you see here today. Going back, getting different ladies who are in a similar struggle, the same struggle even, if you will, and bringing them forward with her if you choose to come, right? Because Harriet Tubman didn't force anybody. She said, you can come if you're going to come, but if you come, then come home. That's what Harriet Tubman said. That's what the book say. I wasn't there. I don't know. That's what I read when I read about her. Very strong woman, but it takes a powerful one, because when we talked about Harriet Tubman, I said, I'm not going back. I'll tell you right now, okay? When I got out, I don't know that I'm going to go back like Harriet Tubman did. And that's a big deal. Mm-hmm. That speaks to who you are and to who God has called you to be. And that's just an amazing quality that you have. And in that, there is this, and then there is more. Mm-hmm. Yes?
Yeah.
All right. Moving forward. Yes, get excited. Yes. We have Chefin Brown. Yes?
Yeah.
Get excited. I'm so glad you're here today.
Yes.
The title of your chapter is Black Swan.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
It's Black Swan, Chefin.
Black Swan. Black Swan. So when I was when Sarah asked me to do the chapter, and I knew it was, we all come together under domestic violence. But when I thought about my story, I did my chapter set up as how my dysfunctional childhood made me the perfect candidate and target to be a victim of domestic violence. How it shaped me and trained me to accept that behavior. And when you think about swans, I thought about the story, The Ugly Duckling, because that's what my childhood was. Mm-hmm. And then I thought about, well, today I'm a swan, right? Mm-hmm. So, they say black swans are rare and precious. Hello, here am I.
Yeah.
That is I. So that's, how my chapter came together was my dysfunctional childhood, how I never felt any type of love, compassion. I was felt ugly, dirty, insignificant. I basically was invisible.
Because that's what you were told, right?
Yes,
You felt
ma'am.
that way because that's what you were
Yes,
told.
ma'am. And I have been a victim of domestic violence since I was 6 years old, because that's my first memory, right? Because domestic violence is not just your partner or your significant other hitting you. Domestic violence is any physical, mental, spiritual behavior that damages you and seeks to control you. And the earliest memory I had was 6 years old, and I have been experiencing it ever since, up until my 40s. And the reason why I couldn't just pick a relationship is because just about every relationship I was in was abusive, either mentally or physically. So I don't know what unconditional love is. I can't just pick one person, right? I felt like I just had that sign, abuse me here. So I had to go to the root of where all mine started from.
Let's talk about that a little
Okay.
bit. I want to read what jumped out of your chapter to me.
Okay.
And we can talk about it today.
Okay.
So it reads, get over it. You're not the only person who's been raped. Stop walking around here like something extraordinary has happened to you. So what, you were raped? Who said that to you?
The woman who was supposed to be my grandmother. And the reason why I say supposed to be my grandmother, because my maternal grandmother actually passed before I was born and when my mom was young. And so her sister took over. And although she was my great aunt, I was raised to call her grandmother. And I was raised to treat her as such. She treated me like some shit, in other words, though, but I was raised to treat her like a grandmother. I apologize. My mouth. But yeah. So she's the one who told me that. And she meant that.
So what happened that made her say that to you?
Well, I had gotten gang raped by 3 individuals who took me by gun, kept me for 5 hours, and repeatedly raped and beat me. I had a lot of damage afterwards. Right, left me with the gift of these glasses. My eyes had to be immediately drained as soon as I got to the ER, and I had concussion. And I had a lot of stuff. And so what happened was, me and my mom was not living. We had got out of this home. Some events took place. We got evicted 2 days after I was gang raped, and had to go back to what I used to call the House of Horrors. And so it was so fresh that every time, even though the house was full, house was always full. Every time my mom moved, I was like this, right? I didn't trust anybody, anything, nothing. I wouldn't even sleep in my bed in that house. I slept on the floor, right? So one day my mom had went upstairs and I was on her heels, and she turned around and she said, "Where is you going?" And my mom just said, "Oh, ever since her incident, she just walks with me, pay her no mind." Like, my mom was trying to diffuse it. And so that's when she said, "Oh, what the hell? You ain't getting nothing but raped. Stop acting like something bad happened to you, something big happened. You ain't the only damn person got raped. What we supposed to do now? Walk around here on eggshells? You need to get over it. Every time I look up, you in the goddamn house. You always in somebody's face. You need to get over it and get out." I just sat there, because at this point I'm used to the abuse.
How old are you right now?
18, lost, confused. I was 18 years on the earth, but mentally at this point I'm like 10, 12 years old. Because honestly, at this point, I just want my mama. I don't want nothing else. I just want my mama, right? Because I knew none of those people in that home loved me in the smallest capacity. I just wanted my mama. Right? So I couldn't heal in that house.
There you go.
I had to leave. The moment I made a vow to myself, I didn't care what I had to do. When I left that house, I was not coming back. I meant that from the depths of my soul, and I never went back. And yes, I've had to do some things, but I made sure I never went back there. I never wanted my children to grow up in that house. And that's why I chose the chapter I chose.
Like when you get together.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank
We are grateful for you.
Thank you.
You are beautiful.
I'm a black star.
You are beautiful inside as well as outside. I've had different encounters with you at this point because you have joined the board of Dana's Daughters. Get excited. As a result of everything, and you operate in your capacity so well.
Thank you.
So we definitely appreciate all of your executive assistant orders and all of the good stuff.
Yes.
Keeps it tight, everybody. But I see more of you now reading your chapter, and I understand more of who you are and where you're going. Yes? Because these things we're talking about being an 18-year-old. You're dealing with 18-year-old stuff, right? Your hormones are going crazy. You're about to get kicked out of school. That's what happens. You just graduate. It's like, okay, what next? Do I go to college? Do I become a stripper? You know, we're in the middle of life changes. We laugh, but it's the real thing, right?
Yes.
Like, it's the real thing. So you're in the middle of life happening just on a regular basis. And you have to worry now about this and that, right?
Well, that's the thing with my childhood. I never had one. So when you speak of those things, that had been going on as far as I can remember. Like my mom at one time, she had her own demons, right? Love you dearly. She had her own demons. And so there was a point where I had to grow up fast, right? So I was paying bills and hiding money and doing grocery shopping. And I was doing things that I shouldn't have been doing, but it's only me. I'm my only child. So that was it, right? And I had to grow up and I had to protect myself from people who meant me no good, who were trying to take all my innocence from me. So at this point, when this incident happened to me, I was already lost trying to figure out what it was that I was going to do. Because I'm in a place where absolutely no one, and I'm not exaggerating, no one in this place gave a damn about me, where I was. People didn't even talk to me, right?
In your home.
I have a huge extended family. 18 people lived in this house. No one talked to me unless to argue or fight with me, right? So I didn't have anybody to say, hey, I'm going through this and what I'm looking at this. And I had no one. So I'm navigating all these things on my own. And of course, I don't have the proper information, right? Because I'm a child. And not only these emotions of not feeling wanted, not feeling loved, not knowing what I'm going to do from this day to the next, but I had no friends either. Because when you grow up with nobody talking to you or loving you, you don't know how to make relationships. I don't know about how to make friendships and relationships. And I don't trust women. The women in my house whoop my ass. And I don't trust men because they do the same. So now what am I doing? So yeah, I'm out here lost and I didn't know what I was going to do. So that began my spiral. My spiral began at that moment. That's part 2.
Let me stop you right there because I don't want you to go too far into it, okay? No. But I just want to really quickly point out that you talked about building relationships. When we talk about domestic violence, a lot of times we think, oh, we have trouble in intimate relationships, but you had trouble just having friends, right?
Yes.
We don't even think about just relationships in general that we have a hard time having and maintaining in a healthy way as a result of the traumas that we have endured in our lives, right? And yours started at childhood, but it could start at any time,
Yeah, I still struggle with it today.
Still today. But you're on a healing journey, and we talk about that too.
Mhm.
That healing is a journey, it's not a destination, it's not somewhere that you necessarily
Exactly.
get to. It's somewhere that you walk constantly, and you'll find different things and different triggers as you keep going that you'll have to address, you'll have to face, you'll have to speak about, right? You have to talk
Correct.
about those things that's deep, deep, deep in the back that you forgot about.
Yes.
They will begin to come up, right?
Mhm.
As
Thank
you
you,
as
Sierra.
you guys were writing, you see ladies writing, I'm sure each and every one of you came up with something like, I forgot that even
Mhm.
happened.
Yes.
And it's like one of the most traumatic things that happen to you because we can suppress things really well so that we can function every day and go to work, right? We got to smile for the people. We got to be good for our children as women. We got to be housemakers. We got to make the money. We got to keep everything structured and keep everybody together. But we push these things in the back and they can creep out and they will change you when they do. Again, as if they didn't change you enough the first time, right? But I thank you so much for sharing your story today.
Thank you.
I appreciate your honesty, Black Swan. Yes, I will never address you as anything other than that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Because that's
She
who
means
you are, okay?
Yes.
So we're gonna let this second
Thank you.
get excited. Now, I'm going to move forward here. Before we get to Donna, actually, I told you that there were some authors of the book who aren't present today. And this one, we're going to call them anonymous, right? So we want to honor this person. We want to acknowledge their story. We want to acknowledge their strength. We want to thank them for participating in the capacity that they could serve at this present moment in their life, right? So to me, that's as real as it gets, right?
Mhm.
When you're trying to tell your story and you feel like maybe I still can't even fully tell my story, right? But I'm gonna tell it the best way I can in the best way that I can, right? And so we're going to honor Anonymous. I'm simply going to read an excerpt from her chapter. I will not speak on her behalf. I will not provide any explanation. I will not provide any extra detail because I simply don't have it. And this is her story to tell, and this is the way in which she can tell it. But I do want to tell you, this story right here is something else. So it reads, no, please stop. Shut up and stop moving. You invited me. Please stop. Dummy, this is your fault. Pressed on the cold floor with my panties forced to the side, I felt helpless while sweat poured down my face. My mother's words were ringing clearly in my head. You do not have company when no one is home. Do not bring no damn body in this house. Why had I chosen not to listen? Now here I was helpless, feeling the heat of disgust in my stomach from just laying there and staring at nothing. My eyes carefully followed the invisible man as he pulled up his pants and said, "Thank you." Thank you? You disgusting piece of unwanted shit. How dare you? Seedy words invaded my thoughts. Slut, whore, red bitch, dummy. Those were just a few of the names I had been called. Unfortunately, it was the common vocabulary that I was used to hearing when me was described. And to me, they were words of truth, or so I thought.
Wow.
Take a pause there. Want to thank Anonymous for their story.
Thank you. Thank you, Anonymous.
I want to thank Anonymous for their bravery and for stepping forward to tell a story that was never told, right? Our next author that I do want to mention, who was unable to attend today, but we'd be remiss if we didn't at least acknowledge her story as well. Her name is Avery, and the title of her chapter is called From Fear to Freedom. I, just like Anonymous, as she's not here, don't want to speak on her behalf, but I do want to share a piece of her story as it is similarly impactful. Her chapter reads, I was in shock. I was not sure how I was going to survive day to day. I had exhausted what I thought were all of my options. I could not seem to get myself together. And the reality was, I was not in this state of being stuck alone. Not only had I become a mother of 3 children, but I was in an abusive relationship that could have claimed my life at any moment. I was caught up in something that I should have been able to walk away from at any moment, and yet I was stuck. I was hurting in a place that was too deep to soothe. And I'm gonna leave it there for her. Now, what I can say is that has to be a different type of pain. To be hurting in a place that you can't even soothe. And from what she shared, having 3 children in an abusive relationship and feeling stuck, right? I don't know how many of us can relate to that type of situation where you've been in any scenario that wasn't necessarily favorable for you, but you just don't know how to get out, right? You just don't know how to step forward.
Mm-hmm.
And there will be people around you, which I'm sure each of you have experienced. Why so there? Why? What? I don't get it. Don't you love your children? Why didn't you get out of there? What if he hurt them next? Right? What if they're next on his list? And then that's on you. If my abuser continues, that's on me, and that's just an added level of pressure, right? But you have to go to work every day, right? You have to mother 3 children every day. And I'll share with you, she was a young mother. She started having children at 19 and she had them consecutively. So by 22, she has 3 children and she's stuck. So I just wanted to definitely acknowledge her story. I want to say, Avery, that we do appreciate you. As the book tour goes on, she will be physically present, and you guys will get to hear from her and talk to her and hear more about her story and her experiences. But we appreciate her speaking up today. We appreciate her sharing what so many of us can probably relate to, and so many women that I know nowadays who are just in these abusive relationships with these men and are staying because of the children, or are staying because of this or because of that. So we appreciate Avery in her absence, and we honor and acknowledge her. And now we're going to, we have now, yes, I introduced her as the Donna Bruce, yes. But that is your married name. Your chapter was simply titled Donna Erling Culver. And that is your maiden name, correct? Okay. So I'll start just by reading the excerpt of your chapter that I pulled out. And then we can talk to the Donna Bruce, guys, okay? Because this is a big All right, her chapter. Would you like to know how bad the mind can get when you have damaged your body beyond repair with drugs, alcohol, and abuse? Let me paint the picture. Imagine walking alongside a dismal cemetery, minding your business, when all of a sudden you see a completely naked woman screaming out, "I'm a new creature in Christ." Thank you. Yes, that was me. I had taken a long, hard fall from the pretty little girl who wanted so much more out of life. So, Donna, you were in the cemetery, naked. And you were screaming, "I'm a new creature in Christ."
Yeah, somebody might. I'm
trying. Is it mine?
It's throwing me off.
Might be
Because right now I'm grounding myself.
Mm.
I need to be in full transparency. Right now, this is a lot. And I am on a journey of healing. And, vicarious trauma is real. So I have coping skills and I have things like that. And right now I'm grounding myself because what I hear is triggering, but it's also letting me know that I'm not alone. So I want to check in on y'all because it's a lot, right? I want to check, and this is just who I am to make sure y'all okay. If y'all need to take a minute or just breathe or just stand up because it's a lot. And we have been charged through Sierra to share these stories. And it's just impeding on my spirit to check in on everybody else. So that was me in the cemetery, naked, eating grass. In my right, no, I wasn't in my right frame, not on drugs. Was she high? No, she wasn't high. Something happened to her to end up in a cemetery eating grass, quoting scripture. That was a safe place for me. I was looking for my mother who just passed. So my title is Donna E. Culver because that's who I am. And I didn't want to be her. So I created all these other people. I created Scorpio. I created Donna Buck. I am Donna Bruce Unlimited Incorporated, though. That's who I am today. That's the name of my nonprofit. Thank you, Sierra, for guiding and using my experiences to help someone else. I'm not going to give y'all too much because y'all got to know why I was in the cemetery eating grass, right? Because someone told me years ago, the name of your book is They Found Me in the Cemetery. I'm not writing no book. What's wrong with these people? I'm not writing a book. And 2 years ago, I had began writing, just writing. And Sierra invited us out to be a co-author because you got to understand when you're writing about yourself, now you got to think about your family. You got to think about other people. You got to think about who is this going to hurt? Who is this going to, yes, we want to heal, but at some point we learn not to heal at the expense of others. So everything, thank you, Anonymous. Thank you, you guys, for sitting on this panel, having the courage to share, because we'll meet after this and we'll build each other after this. But it was hard. But I can tell you is, I still want my mother. By any means necessary. If that meant being exploited, it didn't matter. If that meant using drugs with her, it didn't matter. If that meant we had to travel in the middle of the night because she was being beaten, it didn't matter. So Donna E. Culver didn't get an opportunity to grow up. Donna E. Culver didn't get an opportunity at a great childhood. But boy, who did it create? And who I'm becoming is just out of this world. It's extraordinary. So I'm grateful to be on the panel. I'm trying not to give y'all a lot because I could talk, right? And I want to tell y'all like the whole thing, how it really happened. And I want to tell y'all about I want to tell y'all about all of it. I want to tell y'all how my dad sent me away to treatment. And I was picked up off the street and pimped out. How my dad was my saving grace. And I still, the pain and hurt of just longing for my mother, that still haunts me today. But I turned that pain into purpose. I'm helping so many other people. And by chance, I have so many daughters and sons. People call me mom. So I couldn't get my mother, but I became a mother. Of not only my biological kids, but people call me mom. That's a hard title that's a big shoe to fill when people call you mom. So it's a lot of ins and outs. It's a lot of twists and turns. I don't look anything like what I've been through. And you'll be like, is that same person? Wow. Where part two? Where part? Look, I'm looking at where part two. Right?
I'm looking at Where's Part 2. Listen, okay? For everybody.
Sierra started this, right? And we all have our own books coming out of this.
Mhm.
And it's just amazing to just sit on a panel with you guys because it takes a lot of courage to tell the story, that the greatest story that never been told. But the best part about it is it's happening and nobody's talking about it. So we're opening up doors.
Mhm.
So you can say me too.
Mhm.
And we have the resources to say we have therapists, we have social workers, we have organizations that can help you heal through it. So we're not just putting the book out without resources. We have the resources to also help you heal holistically and all together. That's all I'm gonna say. Unless you got another question.
I thank you for your spirit and your kindness. I thank you for checking in on everybody, for checking in on me, right? Because I'm a part of everybody.
Absolutely.
I was making sure. Because this is a lot and it can be a lot to ingest, especially if you're in various stages of healing, right? Because we're all sitting here, we all look beautiful today, yes?
Yes.
Everybody, y'all look cute, yes. True. But we don't know the mask that anybody in here may or may not be wearing, right? And so when you are hearing these triggers, is what we call them, when you're hearing these encounters that resonate with you on a deeper level, it can affect you even sitting here today. So having to check in is really important. And what I do appreciate about the book is that everybody's story, they tell exactly what it was. You know, they give as much as they can about what happened. Because as you just learned, there's more to come from this, right? Everybody is really going to tell their story. The tell all of tell alls, right? As a result of this anthology. And there goes Harriet Tubman again, giving out to the poor. Robin Hood, who are you?
The hope dealer.
The hope dealer, yeah.
The hope dealer.
That is her Instagram tag, guys, okay? Sierra
no.
Instagram is the hope dealer. Not the dope dealer, but the hope
The
dealer.
hope dealer. Yes.
The
Okay, get into it. But I definitely thank you for your transparency in the book. I thank you for sharing what you just shared. As if that wasn't enough, there's more. I will tell you that. There is more. That wasn't even the, that wasn't even it. Like, not that being in the cemetery eating grass naked and you're not even on drugs is not impactful. Right, quoting scripture. Not that that's not impactful, but there's so much more to you, and you definitely don't look like your story. And so I'm grateful that you're here today. I'm grateful that you decided to share. I'm grateful that you started your organization. I'm thankful that you want to be Harriet Tubman #2, and you're going to reach back and pull people forward. I'm thankful that you are the mother that you didn't have. Yes?
Yes.
yes.
So we are going to move forward to Felicia. Yes, get excited. And the title of her chapter is simply Felicia's story. Yes?
Yes. It's simply Felicia's story because it's my story and I own it. I think there's no better way to tell your story but to own it. If you want it to be someone else's, then tell someone else's story. But it's my story and I own it. I accept it. I lived it. I experienced it. I experienced the trauma behind it. And I'm also a living testimony because of it.
I love that. Because you're overcome by the word of your testimony.
Amen.
Right? And if we're going to get churchy, then we might as well.
Go ahead.
No, we acknowledge God in everything that we do. That is a staple. Because without him, I don't think any of you would be here.
Absolutely not.
We can keep it as cute as we like to keep it, but we're just going to be honest and real about our truth, and that is our truth. We share that. Sometimes it takes a higher power to pull you up out of your mess, right?
Amen.
Whether it was mess that you got yourself in, or whether it was some message you just happened to be in from an innocent little baby. And so, Felicia, I want to read the excerpt that I pulled from your chapter. It said, "This time she told me it was my fault. According to her, I wanted it." Who said that to you?
It was my mother. Such a hard way to hear something like that when you're in pain, when you endured something. But the reality is she was in pain. So she gave me what she knew. Yeah.
Thank you for acknowledging that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times when we tell our story, we tell it from a self-centered place, right? Because it's our story happened to us. But as we grow in our journey, as we go through therapy, as we begin to dig up these things, we learn that these people served in the best capacity that they could. They loved us to the extent that they knew. And while that didn't feel good to us, it was oftentimes the best that they had to give. But that's hurtful.
Yeah, it's very hurtful, to say the least. It's through growth that I realized that I had to, Sankofa says that you can't move forward until you look back and you see where you've come from. And looking back, I realized that she was in pain. That's why she said that. That helped me to transition from that place, to grow, to realize that Felicia's story is hers, but it's just a part of my journey as well. And so it is to give life to someone else, to give them courage, to own their story, tell their story, look back, learn from it, and allow it to help you move forward, even though it may be hard. And I must admit, in this moment, hearing this repeated back to you is not easy. And hearing everyone else's story is not easy. My stomach is doing flips right now, and I'm like, wow, that was me. It was hard living that story. And just like my sisters before me have said, reliving that story, telling that story, sharing that story is not easy. Know that sharing that story is a gift. How can it be a gift? Because it was a part of our lives. It's a gift because now we're here to tell it. That's why it's a gift. It didn't overcome us. We're gonna overcome it, despite where we might find ourselves today.
Yeah, I love that. In reading your chapter, you did acknowledge the things that happened to you, but much of it was very empowering, just like what you said, how, yes, these things happened. Yes, I was traumatized by them. I was changed by them, but there's another side, right? There is hope. There is healing. There is a flip side to this story. You guys don't have to stay where you are. And that's the point of the greatest story that's never been told, right? That's the point of the anthology, right? It's to
Absolutely.
let people know that you have a voice.
Absolutely.
You can speak your truth. And it will offend others, right? It will step on some toes. Your offenders will be offended. Should I say it again? I said, your offenders will be offended when you decide to tell your story. And sometimes you fear the repercussions that may come of that, right? You may fear the retaliation, the judgment. I don't care what other people think, or people say things like that all the time. And the reality of it is, a lot of us do. We absolutely do, especially our loved ones, right? We're not talking about the people on the internet, maybe. I don't care if Beyonce thinks my shoes are nice. She probably doesn't, right? But if my mama says they don't look nice, I'm like, maybe I should change my shoes. We care. And if you don't, maybe you should check on something inside yourself, because we should care about one another, right? Because God is loving us, what we should be doing, right? And not to the extent where it changes who you are. That's not what I'm saying at all. But to say that you don't care what anybody else thinks, near or far, close, anything, that's a statement that's probably not even true. So when you're telling this type of a story, right? And these people around you, they may or may not know, and they have their own version of the story that happened, right? So you're saying this happened, and your stepdad is saying that's not how that went, right? It ain't go like that. You threw yourself on me. You invited me over there. When your grandfather's there, he's like, you invited me over there. You wore those shorts in the house. That's your fault.
That is powerful within itself. Because in some of that story, I mean, some of that happened in my story. And that's why it was important for me to own my story. Because, you know, like I said, I was told by my mom that I wanted it. And that's difficult to embrace, that your mother would tell you that you wanted it. I wanted it. I was a child. How could I want something so painful? How could I want something so violating? You know, but to say it doesn't bother you and don't own it, or it didn't matter. Like she said, it's a lie. And that's a part of growing. That's a part of healing, is acknowledging that it does matter and that it does affect you. You know, and realizing how it affected my mom, because she hadn't yet dealt with fully of her story, of acknowledging her story, that her mother said the same thing to her.
I thank you so much for your realness and your honesty right now. I thank you for your vulnerability in this moment. I appreciate it. I want to acknowledge your strength. I want to acknowledge your voice.
Thank you.
Your mother has a voice, but your voice matters, right? Despite her story, despite the explanations, your story matters and you matter.
Thank you. Thank you.
So thank you so much.
Here you go, making people cry.
It's really a tough thing. We say we have these meetings. We're like, we're gonna go and we're gonna talk about this story in this book, and we call it a story in the book. This is life that has actually happened to every one of these ladies. It's not just a story, right? It's not fiction. And
Thank you. Thank you.
the impact of it. Yes,
Yes.
Bruce.
Yes, get into it.
As we talk about it, you get into the real life impact of it. And as I was reading it, I'm telling you guys, it was hard to read. It was hard to read. I had to take several breaks and just breathe and eat some grapes.
Not no grapes.
I thought she was gonna say grass.
Right.
I was like, wait a minute, wait a minute.
It was a page turn. I didn't want to put it down, but it's not. This is real life. Okay, you have to. If you have any level of empathy at all, right? It's not something just like, oh, that just happened, and then she sits here and she's talking about it, and you can see her reliving every single moment of it, despite all the healing that you have gone through. And we know you wouldn't be here today speaking your truth the way you are if you hadn't started your healing journey. So we acknowledge that and we know that it's true, but we can see that this is real, right? This is real for you, and it's real for all of you. So thank you one last time. I do appreciate it. We're going to go forward to Miss Tasha. Yes, get excited. The title of your chapter is I Am the Problem.
Yes. So I remember talking to Sierra about struggling on what am I going to talk about? Because when she invited us last year to invite us to be an author, I was already in the middle of my project. So I'm like, maybe this will be a good thing for me to focus on this chapter and come back to my project. So had my brunch and this in May this year, and I was the keynote speaker. And I decided to talk about the aftermath of trauma because we sit and we talk about our traumas, we talk about our stories, we discuss what we went through, but what happens afterwards? So for me, what happened afterwards was therapy. I went through 7 years of abuse and never not once thought about talking about it to anyone. I kind of thought, okay, I got out of this relationship, I'm good. But in reality, I was not good. So found out I was not good when I was going through marital things with now my ex-husband, who is now my boyfriend again. Long story. But needless to say, we tried the couples therapy. That therapist, she started pulling stuff out of me that I didn't even know was in me. And one day it just clicked, like, I am the problem. I am the problem. I need to fix some things. So accountability is hard for anyone. I'm never going to say that I welcome the abuse because none of us on this stage welcome the abuse that we went through, either sexually, physically, emotionally, mentally. None of us invited that. But we have to sit and reflect on who we are and what we invite into our lives. So this is what brought this chapter to light.
Yes. I appreciate you acknowledging that. I love the way in your chapter you explained what that is. One thing that I wrote that sort of supported that was it read, I was the problem because I saw the signs and chose to ignore them. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And you talk about that and you take ownership of your role in it, but you do not give any type of excuse for your abuser in the same way, right?
You know, it's kind of hard to first acknowledge that you've been abused and then acknowledge that, okay, maybe I could have avoided some of the stuff that happened to me. It took, after I got out of the relationship, I still didn't even like tell anyone that I was being abused because all of the manipulation, all of the stuff that he kept on embedding in my brain, I kept on saying, no, he did not abuse me. I did this for him to do this. I provoked him to throw me out of a running car one day on the road. I caused him to beat me up so badly in front of my kids. I caused all of this, but in reality, no, I didn't. No, his demons are his demons, and he needs to deal with that. But I need to deal with what is going on with me. I need to deal with my demons. And it took for me to lose the one man that really truly loved me in order for me to start dealing with my demons. So that's why now he's my boyfriend again.
So let's talk about the abuse that you didn't think was abuse really quickly, right? Not trying to drudge up anything for you, but the excerpt that I wanted to read from you, because it's funny that you say you didn't think you were abused. Right?
No.
I'm gonna read a section from your chapter.
Okay.
It says, the first time his fist came across my face, I was in total shock. I'm not even sure if I blacked out or just had an out-of-body experience. But what I do know is that it was like a scene from a movie that you keep rewinding just to make sure you saw and felt what you did.
And it's crazy because, it's crazy because I remember that exact moment. It's even crazier that you go through something and you suppress it for years, and then to hear it, it just all come flashing back like that. So I remember going out one night with my friend, and I don't know what the argument was about prior. Well, I do. You gotta read the book about it. But it was an argument prior to that. I left out, went out with my girlfriend, came back home. I didn't even know he was in the house. I didn't see his car outside. The house was pitch black. So when I walked in, immediately I got struck. I don't know if it was his fist. I don't know what it was, but I'm pretty sure I blacked out. And it was that moment when I realized this man is going to kill me. And he would not care nothing about it. Up until that point is when I did not realize I was being abused. And trust me, I started dealing with him when I was 18. I had the high black eyes, busted lips, scars. I had long hair to cover up my scars. So, and I still, up until that point, did not realize I was being abused. I don't know if it was from my childhood and seeing abuse and thinking this is the normacy. I really do not know why up until that point I did not realize I was being abused. But up until that point, I did realize I could lose my life. So I need to get out. So that's what I did.
I'm grateful that you did.
I am too.
What you spoke to something that we talked about a little bit earlier, and you suppressing things and putting them to the back of your mind, right? And you moving forward every day with your mask on as if it doesn't exist.
Exactly.
And so for you to have been, sometimes people don't acknowledge verbal abuse, right? They don't see the mental abuse. They don't see the financial abuse. Sometimes they don't see that thing, but people generally always see the physical abuse. And you were enduring that, and you still denied that you were being abused to yourself.
To
Right?
myself.
'Cause the people around you who knew, they knew, right? And they knew what was happening to you.
Oh, they
as
know
much as they
that.
could.
I mean, so Sheffin, she touched on friendships. My friends saw it and they said absolutely nothing. I was dealing with a man that everyone thought was like amazing. He did stuff in the community. He had this outstanding title. So no, this man could not be doing the things that she is saying or portraying that he's doing to her. So even if I had a voice and wanted to tell someone, no one wouldn't have believed me. I remember finally opening up to a coworker at work, and she brushed it off. So, yeah, I that's part of the reason why I probably didn't thought I was being abused either. I didn't have anyone to tell, and if I did, no one wouldn't believe me anyway. So it's like I went on with my life every day with a smile on my face. I was a young mom, so came home, took care of my mom, went to my kids, went to school, went to work as if nothing was going on when I went home. Wearing my mask.
You touched on something just now that I wanted to mention for everybody on this panel. Can you guys ladies, raise your hand if you in your childhood dealt with an absentee parent?
Yeah.
Even if she was in a house.
Yeah,
mine's
because that's a difficult question for me because my mother was there, but she wasn't
But she
there.
wasn't present.
She was present. She was presently absent.
Mhm.
Absent
Okay.
present,
Well, that's
right?
what I was going to say as well, because
Mm.
my dad was absent. My mother was absent part of my life. I moved back with my mom when I was like 8 or 9, and then even though I was with her at that point, she wasn't there.
Mhm.
You know, she was there, but she wasn't there.
Mhm.
That's
She
a
was
whole
in her
different level
own-
too.
Her own place, you know. So yeah, I can.
Yeah.
And my
Yeah,
mom was
so-
my mom was absent. My dad raised me. So and then that's even the crazier part because I had a strong male figure in my life. And I used to beat myself up like, why did I let this man do this to me? I had a strong male figure in my life that showed me what a man's supposed to be. And I still allow myself to succumb to this man's abuse. So
We stress a lot in our community how our Black men are leaving our families and different things like that. But to your point, it can happen one
Either
way or
way.
the other, right?
Yep.
Having an absent parent in your life can cause you to make these decisions, right? When we're talking about accountability, to keep these people around or to invite these people in the beginning. It's hard to get out, and it's hard when you don't know which way to go to make quote unquote the right decision, if you will, to not necessarily get into these situations and relationships. But when you have been tainted with so much dysfunction your entire life, domestic violence showing up around you in every single way, you don't know what the right decision is. You just have a void that you want to have filled. And I read this in every one of your stories. And whoever that person is at that time, good, bad, or ugly, they're feeling it, and I love it. Right? They don't love me, but I love them. And I love what they do for me. It comes with a little bit of pain. It's a little bit tainted, but it's okay because it's better than what I grew up with, right? It's better than what I had, which was nothing.
I mean, for me, like I had my mom and my dad. However, separate places. Like I had to spend half my year with my dad, who wasn't there. He was there for that family, but he wasn't there for me. I was still a visitor, right? And he was just as abusive. So, it to me, what you said was what I always say, and why I say I was primed to be the victim that I was at then. I'm no longer a victim, but is when you grow up in a place where that is the norm. You see the fighting, you see the arguing. No one is leaving anybody. No one is calling the police. You better not call the police, right? And everybody that is there is making excuses for the person who is being the abuser. Oh, he get on my nerves when he get to acting like that. Oh, whenever he drink, he act like that. Oh, every time he don't get his way, no, he's an abuser. But when you get that, when you go out and you come to these relationships, what am I complaining about? Well, what's the problem? Because that's what I grew up in. Like,
That's what I know.
that's what I know. My aunt ain't going nowhere. My cousins ain't going nowhere, And it's not until you start meeting other people and getting in other situations and you realize this is not the norm.
Right. It's a culture shock for you.
Exactly.
Like, what?
This is not the norm, and you
Your
need to
family doesn't
leave.
fight and stab each other every day?
Yeah, y'all ain't arguing and fussing and cussing all
This
day.
is new to me.
My house wasn't quiet unless we were asleep or not there.
I want to add something to that from a different perspective. When you're in these situations, you have a role that you play, and sometimes we don't acknowledge that role. Part of me acknowledging my mom is that for me, I was the enabler in my family. I was the scapegoat for a lot of things. So part of that was my position. So me going back, also owning my mom, her pain in the midst of me having pain is because partly I was an enabler. I can acknowledge that now, where before I didn't realize that. But I was an enabler, so to speak. And you have to realize that in your family, despite what it is, you had a role. And just like she acknowledged, she didn't own her pain. She didn't own, the abuse. That was too painful. Part of that was enabling it, because I believe in calling a spade as well. Because it's too painful to own.
Right.
It's too painful to acknowledge that I'm a daddy's girl. How can I allow this to happen?
Yeah.
I think we all
That in itself has a level of something that needs to be unpacked and dealt with in counseling and therapy.
I'm going to move forward to the final chapter. It is entitled Talitha Kum, which means little girl rise in Aramaic. It depicts portions of Sierra and my mother's story, which I can stand and say here that if it wasn't for her story, this story wouldn't be here and these ladies wouldn't be sitting here, right? So I wanted to acknowledge my late mother in her absence. If there were a phone to heaven, I would tell her that I love her very much, that I appreciate everything she is and was, that we understand that it wasn't easy now, even though coming up we didn't understand that. I would say that she had a story to tell, and I'm thankful that Sierra is here to tell it. So tell me about the importance of this chapter for you. I know.
This is this I was on um, this chapter was a hard chapter to write. It was a hard chapter to pen um, because it was one that I really encouraged my mother to do herself when she was alive. Um, but she wouldn't do it. And then when she started to lose usage of her hands, um, because my mother died from lung cancer last year. And so we just watched the deterioration process. Um, but once she started getting down to the end and she could no longer use her hands, I was trying to encourage her to use her voice and to do the voice memos. And I honestly never went back to check to see if she started recording some, and she may have, I'm not sure. But when God gave me the vision for this book, um, he just really pressed me about including her story. Because as my sister alluded to, is that there would be no story of Sierra without Dana. And Dana and Sierra are parallel, right? So there are 4 children. And of the 4 children, I am the one who paid tribute. You know, just like in Hunger Games, I was the one who had, yes, Hunger Games. You know,
She did.
I gotta pull myself back out, pull myself out, grab myself. I was the one who, like my mother, had been molested as a child. I was the one who, like my mother, was raped. I was the one who, like my mother, became a teenage mother. I was the one who, like my mother, became literally like a woman with an issue of blood with this whole bleeding thing physically, something that she went through for years, and just the level of struggle that she had as a woman. Um, but Talitha Cohen talks about the grown girl. And so when you talk about a grown girl, you understand that um, for all of us, whenever we experience trauma, whatever age it is that that particular trauma happens is the age that you stay. So I don't care how old this body gets, your mind will say that age. And so a lot of times we talk about people when we talk about their responses. Oh, he acts just like a child, or she acting just like a little girl. Well, she is a little girl. She is. He is a little boy. And so in this chapter, Talitha Cohen, it highlights that from if my mother could tell her story, then she would say that, yes, I was that grown girl. Yes, I was molested. Yes, I was abused. Yes, I lost my father when I was only 12 years old. Yes, my mother lost her mind as a result of my father's death. So I was very much alone. Yes, I was raped and I became a teenage mother at 14. Yes, I continued to have children, but at a certain point, I made a decision to want to do better. At this point, I'm working now. I have this disease that I don't know what's going to happen, but I still want to live. I want to do more. I gave my life to Christ. I got started getting myself together. So I'm working, I'm thriving, I'm a part of an organization, but still every time some type of trauma happens, I respond like I'm 12. So every time something happens, then I want to fight. Every time something happens, then I got to cuss you out. Every time something happens, then I need to be disrespectful to you, because the little girl inside of me is screaming out for help. But I didn't want to get the help because the society says that, if you're older, then you're okay. So I'm suppressing it. I'm working. Now I have 3 degrees. Now I have my family. My children are coming around. But there's still a very broken part of me that exists. And it was at a certain point, even before her death, that she really realized it. She did. She started to get it, and she wanted to make a change. And there was a lot of healing that started to happen. And so that's really what this chapter talks about. But it just parallels in her life compared to mine, and just this factor on the generational curse. And so, yes, we're talking about Dana Scott, but we're also talking about Joyce. We're talking about her mom and the mom that came before. It just kept repeating the same cycle over and over and over again. And so how we come to Harriet Tubman is, or the hope dealer, is to get to a point where you say, enough is enough. Because now I have a little girl. I have a girl who's watching me, who helped pull me out of my situation and really realize, like, hey, you can't keep doing this. Something has to give. You have to make a choice. And so for everybody who's ever experienced anything, you can't pretend that this stuff didn't happen. You have to acknowledge that it's real, and you have to be confident enough within yourself that you can do it and that healing is available to you. Because one of the reasons why Dana's Daughters exist, why the greatest story never told exists, is because I heard so many times people say over and over again to me that, well, I just have to live with it. No, you don't. You don't, because the thing about it is that you're not living anyway. You're just existing. You're a shell of a person. And so you put on your mask and you become an actor or actress without the Emmy every single day, with other people who are also actors and actresses, until you get to a certain point where you want to do something different. No, you may not end up on a platform like this. No, you may not wind up on TV or, for the gram have be blue check verified. Maybe you won't, but you'll be better as a person. And whatever the parent won't deal with, the children will. And so you have to make a choice to do something different. And that's what I did. And this was my tribute to her, to be able to give back, to share the pieces of the story that I know about her fully. There were certain things that she did not reveal to me, but there was a lot that she did share over the years. And I was walking in the same path. And I'm glad to say that my children will not, because I released that story.
So as we are wrapping up here, I'm going to leave it with this. I had a whole thing, and I asked Sarah, what did you want to come? Why the anthology? What's the mission? What's the purpose here? And even taking the time to get these ladies together to write the stories. And there was a lot said, but the bottom line is this: that we are overcome by the words of our testimony. Simply put. So I thank you, ladies, for coming today. And talk to them outside in the library. We're doing pre-sales today, as the physical copies of the book aren't necessarily available on site today, but you guys can exchange contact information with these ladies if you want to get with the organization Dana's Daughters. If you want to support in any kind of way, if you want to become a volunteer, if you want to, just share the goodness of what's happening with these ladies, and get a couple of copies and some gifts. Yes, of the greatest story never told. Get excited.
Yes, order today.
You will have the time to share with them just out here in the lobby immediately after. So we thank you guys for coming again, and we appreciate your your thoughts. We appreciate your attention today. I appreciate your participation. You guys were an amazing audience today. And one more time for the authors of The Greatest Story Never
Okay. Thank you.
To thank all of you for coming out. I'm going to dish the mic. I can speak. There's two things. One, writing is a very solitary exercise full of a lot of self-doubt. To not just do this privately, but then to come out publicly and share your story, that requires a great deal of vulnerability. And some of the greatest authors in this nation who have come through these doors haven't done it as well. Thank you. As Kia said, pre-sales for the books are outside. Please come on out. Thanks again for coming to the Pratt.